Is it a good time to buy Apple stock, especially after the new iPhone 12 release? Let's find out. I'm not going to throw this one.
Cha-ching!
Apple is one of the most popular companies in the world, so it's no surprise that when they launch their new products, people around the world get excited. And as an investor, you'd want to know, what are Apple's plans? Are they going to be better or worse? And how do people perceive them? You want to know these things so that you can determine whether buying Apple stock is the right choice for you. Because not everyone should own Apple, and only those who understand their business can really get the best investment. Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of all time, only invests in businesses that he understands. And so should you. So in this video, we'll be giving you a full breakdown of Apple's plans for the next 5 to 10 years after their iPhone 12 event. And after that, Emir will give you a full stock analysis breakdown. So if you're thinking about investing in Apple, or if you're an Apple investor, then this is the only video that you need to watch to get all the information you need of Apple as of October 2020. I've got my Steve Jobs sweater on, and I'm ready to go. First, I'll be going through the iPhone 12 October event and talk about the major and minor announcements that you might have missed. Then I'll talk about what these announcements mean for the future of Apple, and I'll do my best to predict where they're going in the next 5 to 10 years. So hit that thumbs up button if you're excited, and let this video go viral so that Tim Cook can see this and verify whether our predictions are true. Okay, so let's talk about the iPhone 12 event. And one thing I want to mention from the beginning is how cinematic and engaging their video production is. Apple, like a lot of other companies, used to hold live physical events to showcase their new products every year. But we know that's not possible right now in 2020. So companies that used to hold live physical events have to now rely on virtual events or live video streams. And wow, does Apple do it right. Just watch the first 2 minutes of this event and you'll know that no other company has this level of quality in their videos. Apple is really taking it to the next level with their videos, and as an investor, this is a good thing because it shows that the company is adapting pretty well and pretty fast to something that was out of their control. And the fact that they went through with this event with such elegance and they had 2.5 million people tuning in live from all over the world, this is a good sign for investors because people's attention is valuable currency. 52 million people have watched Apple's video event, and in business, when you get this much attention, it's a sign that you're doing something right. So the event starts off with the introduction of the HomePod Mini and Tim Apple talking about how we spend a lot more time at home these days and the technology we choose is even more important for the best experience. And he's already selling us from the start. I love this guy. But let's go to the main event, the iPhone 12. This year, Apple is portraying the iPhone 12 as a new era of iPhones, the newest feature being 5G support. They talk a lot about 5G and how it's going to be faster and more reliable, so they hype 5G up a lot. But is 5G really the next big thing? I'm going to give you a 30-second overview of 5G and then you get to decide. There are two types of 5G, Sub-6 and mmWave 5G. Sub-6 basically gives you wider coverage,
so you can get higher network speeds even in densely populated areas.
What Tim said. Sub-6 5G is about the same speed as the 4G LTE that we have right now. mmWave 5G is the super fast 5G. But as of now, you literally have to be standing in front of the antennas for you to get that super fast speeds. Both Sub-6 and mmWave 5G is not yet widely available, especially outside of the US. So Apple is actually selling you something that doesn't yet exist. Now, something Tim didn't tell you at the event is that only the US models of the iPhone 12 will support mmWave 5G. iPhone 12s outside of the US will only support the slower Sub-6 5G. I don't think this is a big issue. I think people outside of the US will still buy the iPhone 12 despite it not having the mmWave technology because mmWave 5G is not widely available in their region anyway. That's a mouthful to say, mmWave 5G, mmWave. So that's 5G. Now let's talk about the phone itself. The iPhones this year have a new square design and it looks noticeably different from the iPhone 10 and iPhone 11. I say noticeably different because this is important. Smartphones have kind of peaked in technology, so the only way to convince people to upgrade their phones is to include a new design and maybe some new colors. When we talk about iPhone, we have to remember that while people are buying it for its simplicity and just because it's a good phone, people are also buying it as a status symbol. And Apple knows this, which is why they do their best every year to change the design of the iPhone, whether it's 3 cameras or whatever design that they change or new colors, so that people have an excuse to upgrade their phone. And this year is the biggest design change that they've made since the iPhone X in 2017. So as an investor, you can count on Apple selling their new devices and convincing people to upgrade even if their old phones still work. Now let's talk about the new smartphone chip in the iPhone 12. It's the first 5nm chip in a smartphone, which just means that it's really small but has more power and is more power efficient. But what's more interesting is Apple's focus on gaming. They talk about how this chip would be so much better for gaming, and they even partnered with League of Legends. Another thing that Apple didn't mention is that when you buy a new iPhone 12, you will be getting 3 months free of Apple Arcade. Apple Arcade is Apple's new game subscription service that costs $5 a month on its own. When we talk about gaming, we usually think about people on computer games or PlayStations or Xboxes, or maybe some people who sweat over their phones on PUBG. But in Apple Arcade, Apple is trying to get more people into gaming with a different style of gaming with a different touchscreen interface. They're bringing gaming into a wider audience because different people enjoy different kind of games. I've tried Apple Arcade myself, and I could say it's pretty awesome, and the games are pretty unique, ranging from puzzle games, music games, and even your classic adventure games. So as an investor, it's important to know that Apple is pushing their users towards their service as opposed to just relying on their product of the iPhone, which we'll talk about more later. Another important thing that Apple mentioned is their new accessories. So the new iPhone 12 comes with a magnet on its back, and it can be attached to a whole bunch of accessories like wireless chargers, wallets, and docks made by Apple and third parties like Belkin. This is important because Apple's accessories and wearables have been growing exponentially since 2015. They make more money selling accessories and wearables than they do selling computers. That's crazy. So expanding their accessory lineup is good news for investors who want to invest in that future cash flow. Apple also talked about how they want to leave a better impact on the environment by being carbon neutral by 2030. They've removed the earphones and the charging brick in the box because they want to cut down on production of using rare earth materials. But what's more interesting is that because they removed the charging brick and the earphones, they now have a smaller, slimmer, and lighter iPhone box. And they claim that they can fit 70% more iPhones on a shipping pallet. For a company that ships millions of iPhones every year, this is huge. They're able to fit more iPhones in each crate, truck, or plane, which means more revenue per shipment. I did some research, and apparently they're able to fit about 350,000 iPhone boxes on a Boeing 747 airplane, and they still have enough space, but where they hit the limit is the weight restriction. With a smaller and lighter box, this means that Apple could potentially 1.5 times that amount and now fit 500,000 iPhone boxes in that same Boeing 747 with the new box. This might not seem like a big deal, but when you're shipping millions of iPhones over a few years, that increase in efficiency will be huge for Apple. Apple also announced the iPhone 12 mini, the iPhone 12 Pro, and the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which shows that they're aiming to cover a wider range of users with their phones. They're also still selling their iPhone 11 and iPhone XR from 2 years ago, which is quite surprising. This is what the 2020 iPhone lineup looks like, and it's pretty clear that they want to have iPhones available at every price range for everyone. The iPhone SE is the budget or starter option, targeting Android users to switch over to iPhone, or kids, teens, or old people who just need a basic phone. The iPhone XR and 11 for people who are budget conscious and don't mind buying last year's technology to save a bit of money. The iPhone 12 mini for people who either prefer smaller phones or people who want the latest and greatest but can only afford $700. The iPhone 12, which is the successor of last year's iPhone 11, and the iPhone 12 Pros for people who just want to flex. So the market they're targeting with the iPhone 12 Pros are split into two. First, it's the actual pro users who use these extra features like the better camera and the laser sensor or LiDAR camera, like this guy doing all the pro stuff with his Pro iPhone. And the second, more common one, is for people who just want to show that they have the latest and greatest iPhone. Remember how I said that people buy iPhone as a status symbol? while the Pro models of the iPhones serve that purpose. I mean, look at that gold color. It just screams money. That's why it's so important for the Pro models to have physical differences from the regular iPhone 12s. The colors are different, and even the blue on the Pro models are a different kind of blue than the regular iPhone 12. Now, something else Apple didn't tell you is that the iPhone 12s don't actually start at $699. They only start at $699 if you buy an iPhone from their carrier partners. If you want to buy the unlocked version of the iPhone, you have to spend an extra $30, which is not a big deal, but come on Apple, you could at least tell us the real price up front. This extra $30 only applies to the regular iPhone 12s and not the Pro models, and I feel like this is a way for them to incentivize you to upgrade to the Pro model. Because if you're considering the iPhone 12, which starts at $799, you have to add $30 to get the unlocked version, which doesn't apply to the Pro model, and then you have to add another $50 to get the 128GB storage option, which is the default option on the iPhone 12 Pro. So at that point, a regular iPhone 12 unlocked with 128GB of storage would cost you $880. And for just another $120, you could be getting yourself an iPhone 12 Pro with the same storage. See what Apple did there? But people are gonna buy what they're gonna buy. So as an investor, it's good to know that they're putting thought into these pricing strategies and trying their best to increase the lifetime value of each customer, and also increase how much money you spend. So what's Apple's plan for the next 5 to 10 years? We can see the pattern of Apple moving away from their iPhones being the heavy lifters. Apple is focusing more on accessories, software, and services like Apple Arcade, Apple TV Plus, Apple Fitness, Apple Music, and their wearables like Apple Watch and AirPods. They're doing this because they know that smartphone technology has already peaked, and there's not much more they can do to innovate with their phones besides making round design square, adding better cameras, and maybe removing some ports. Now this doesn't mean that iPhone sales will plummet all of a sudden, but do expect Apple to venture into new products and services in the future. They're already prototyping a bunch of new products like the Apple Glasses and even the Apple Car. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with in the next decade. As a long-term investor, you need to know the company enough to trust that they will take their products and services in the right direction. And I really like how the iPhone 12 looks. I might consider getting it when I need to buy a new iPhone, and I'm also considering investing in Apple. Let me know down in the comments what you think about the iPhone 12 and what you think about being an Apple investor. One last thing you need to know about Apple if you want to invest in their company is their core philosophies. The biggest competition for iPhone is not Samsung, it's not Huawei, or it's not any other Android phone. The biggest competitor of iPhones are actually other iPhones. Second-hand or older iPhone models actually compete pretty well with the new models because iPhones last very long and they keep their resale value. So if someone wants to buy a new iPhone, they can have the option of buying the new iPhone 12 for $799, or they can buy a discounted iPhone 10, iPhone XS, or iPhone 11 from last year. Now that Apple is keeping more iPhones in their lineup, there's even more competition. The iPhone 12 also competes with the iPhone 11 and iPhone XR, which are still great phones at a discounted price, just not the latest and greatest. On the lower end, the iPhone SE was once a good budget option, but now that the iPhone XR is just $100 more, the iPhone SE is going to have some pretty steep competition from its big brother. So you can see how Apple works. Their biggest competition is themselves, and they usually kill their own products with new products. As an investor, it's a really good idea to understand the core philosophies of Apple and how they work. But now, let's go into the stock analysis, and Emir will tell you all about it. Snap!
Whoa! So we just talked about Apple's new products and their pricing in the market. It all looks good and stuff, but is this stock something to invest in now? Let's take a look at some of the numbers in this stock and see whether this should be at the top of our watch list. In 2019, Apple's annual revenue was $260 billion with a net profit of $55 billion. Imagine making $55 billion in a year. Their annual profits is bigger than Maybank's market cap as a whole. As if this wasn't enough, Apple posted record revenues in the first half of 2020 with growing profits as well. This is probably in part due to a surging demand in iPads during the lockdowns. With the launch of the iPhone 12, analysts seem to be super bullish on the Apple stock, where they think that a supercycle is on the horizon. Looking at eToro's handy research tool, most of these analysts actually increased their price targets for Apple on the day of their launch itself. Even though Apple's revenue is massive, we can see that their revenues are actually declining in 2019 versus 2018. It's quite difficult to grow by a meaningful amount once you've reached this amount of scale. Unless you're Amazon, of course, who grew their sales 40% year over year to $89 billion. To understand this a bit further though, let's dive a bit deeper into Apple's revenue in 2019. Apple has a very clear strategy to drive their revenue in both the services and the wearable segments. We think that this makes a lot of sense for two reasons. Firstly, the sales of Apple's iPhones have reached critical mass levels, raking in around $140 billion in 2019. There just aren't that many people around to sell iPhones to anymore, right? Secondly, the two markets that they're targeting are growing at much faster rates, and they're also targeting their massive base who can see synergies in buying these products. Remember the part earlier in the video where we talked about Apple's services and how they're focusing on them? Well, these are recurring revenues. It's something all companies want. To explain this, let me give you an example. I bought the iPhone XR around 2 years ago, and I probably won't upgrade for another 1 to 3 years. This means I'll only buy a new iPhone every 3 to 5 years because it's so expensive, and to be honest, it works very well. Apple will only receive iPhone revenue from me once in every around 5 years. For their services, on the other hand, it's something that I'll pay for every single month. This is something that a lot of companies are striving to move towards. For example, Adobe used to sell Photoshop as a one-off purchase fee. At the time, their stock wasn't doing amazing things even though the service was good. When the new CEO came in, they decided to shift their business model from a one-off purchase to a monthly subscription. This really grew their revenues and profits and made them the giants that they are today. It's very clear why Apple is trying to move from a pure hardware play to a more service play that charges you on a monthly basis. If I'm subscribed to, let's say, Apple Fitness or iCloud, I'm very much less likely to switch from an iPhone to a Samsung or a Huawei, for example. This is what they call a divergence play, where they're really building an ecosystem around the iPhone where users get a lot of synergies from using their other products and makes it difficult for them to leave. In 2019, Apple's services, wearables, and accessories only made up around 26% of their total revenues. Moving forward, a good indicator of how well Apple is doing is to see this number go up with the introduction of MagSafe and Apple One. I'm not saying that I want the sales of iPhones to drop. What I'm saying is I want to see the sales of your services, accessories, and wearables to start climbing up and form a larger percentage of Apple's revenue. To add on to the case for services, the gross margin for this product is around 60% versus a 30% gross margin for the iPhone. So that's obviously a good thing. As they sell more and more services, Apple's net profits will actually start to go up. One thing to look out for though is more and more companies starting to protest against Apple, similar to what happened with the Epic Games saga. Apple monopolizes their App Store as there's no other way for anyone to distribute apps on the iPhone, and they also collect a nice 30% cut for all transactions that go through it. As a business, this is fantastic. However, government intervention might start to come in to slow down or to completely stop Apple's monopolization tactics. More and more companies are starting to voice out, including Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg. So this is definitely something to watch out for in Apple's entire strategy to moving towards services. Balance sheet wise, I won't really go much into it. Apple has one of the best balance sheets of any company in the world. As of the last quarter, Apple had $93 billion in cash and short-term investments. In the past few months, Apple has also taken the move to raise fresh new capital through issuing bonds with rock-bottom interest rates, meaning they're actually taking in a lot of cash and paying very little in interest. That's a smart move for any company. With Apple's strong balance sheet and financials, this makes it a lot easier for them to do versus a company like Kodak. Now let's go to the important part, being valuation. Apple is currently neck and neck for first spot in terms of the largest company in the world with Saudi Aramco. They're both currently worth $2 trillion and are the only companies in the world worth that much. We're looking at numbers that don't even make sense anymore. $2 trillion is 2,000 billion, and it's honestly something that you can't even imagine. These companies have gotten so big so quickly that Congress is actually considering breaking them up into smaller pieces. Apple is currently trading at a PE ratio higher than 30 and is actually a bit closer to the 35 mark. Now, I'm not one to use PE ratios as a gauge to value companies, but when you're worth $2 trillion and have slowing income growth, it's definitely something to look out for. However, when you compare this to the other FANG stocks in the market, Apple actually doesn't look so crazy and is very much in line with the rest of them. Don't get me wrong though, I still believe that Apple is a very strong company and they'll only continue growing from here. Another thing to consider is that a company with this valuation is much harder to grow than a company with a smaller valuation like, let's say, PayPal. If I invested $100 in both PayPal and Apple shares, it'll be much more difficult for me to double my money with Apple. To double my money with PayPal, the company needs to add around $250 billion in value. This seems like a big amount, but it's definitely something achievable for a company like PayPal. For us to double our $100 with Apple stock, the company would need to add a value of $2 trillion, and I honestly don't know how they're going to do that. So that's the thing about investing in companies with massive valuations. It's just much harder for you to grow your money, but of course, I could be wrong. They can maintain their slow revenue and income growth and still see the stock price go up. That's what has been happening for the past 5 years anyway. Since 2015, Apple's net profits actually hasn't really moved up by a lot, but their stock price has tripled in value. That's just how the stock market works, I guess. We always have the thinking in mind that for a company's stock price to go up, they have to be earning more, right? But that's not always the case. Sometimes investors don't only look for growth, but they actually want companies with rock-solid financials who they know will be here for a long time. And I believe that Apple is one of them. Still, the choice is of course completely up to you. I don't really invest in companies this big, but their exciting new product launches and the direction of their business still keeps me interested. Would you invest in Apple? Let us know down in the comments down below. If you want to invest in Apple or any of the stocks for that matter, you can use eToro and you can sign up with the link which I'll leave down in the description below so that you can support our channel, and we really appreciate it. If you're a beginner and have no clue where to start, watch this video where you can learn how to go through the eToro platform in just 20 minutes. Or if you prefer to invest in stocks like Apple passively through robo-advisors, check out this video. See you guys in the next one. Peace out.